Okay, good day to our community members and welcome to our community science event. Today we are going to look at the amazing world of the Venus flytrap. It's nature carnivorous wonder. And I'm going to say it is a plant that has traps and digests its own prey. So let us all pay attention and follow. And the scientific name for this animal or this plant is known as the Donia muscipula. So let us all have that in mind. If it's anywhere, we want to know that. So when it sees anywhere, we will know that it is the Venus flytrap that we are actually talking about. So let's move forward. Okay, this Venus flytrap, it is a plant that is one of the most extraordinary plants on earth. Why are we saying that? Because it is when we have a plant and the plant grows in an unconducive environment, the plant eventually dies. But with this plant, which is the Venus flytrap, it has a special feature that helps it to adapt and also flourishes in unconducive environment. So we say that native to bogs and wetlands of North and South Carolina in America, it has evolved a remarkable strategy to survive in nutrient poor soils or unconducive environment. But how does this plant actually survive? Okay, so this plant normally, like any other plant, undergoes photosynthesis, and that is getting energy from the sun and also from its soil and from the air to survive and produce glucose. That is a normal sugar for to fuel its growth and other living activities. Apart from that, also when this plant actually finds itself in an unconducive environment, it also has a special feature that helps it to hunt insects. That is a supplement to supplement its diet when it captures its prey. And the most fascinating part about it is that this plant actually reacts in milliseconds, and that is one of the most fastest movements in the plant kingdom. Very interesting. Okay, now let's look at the photosynthesis. How does it actually happens? So like this Venus flytrap, like any other plant or any other green plant, this Venus flytrap non harnesses solar energy through photosynthesis using what the chlorophyll in the leaves. And this chlorophyll helps to absorb the sunlight and convert it together with carbon dioxide and water from the soil to produce glucose. And this is what the plant primarily uses it as its fuel to undertake or to undergo its life activities. Now, we also spoke about that this plant has a carnivorous manner of activity. So, what is that also supposed to mean? Okay, so like we say initially, when this plant actually finds itself in an unconducive manner, that is box soil, like the normal the wetlands and the rest, it becomes difficult for this plant actually to get nutrients. So what this plant does is that the Venus flytrap native wetlands are extremely low in nitrogen, which is very true, and other essential nutrients. So regular soil nutrients simply aren't available in enough quantities to support this healthy growth of the plant. So what does this plant actually does? So this plant actually what it does here is it survives by catching insects. So and this plant, that is the Venus flytrap, gains nitrogen, phosphorus, and minerals. Nutrients it cannot get from the soil alone. That is what it traps these prey to get from there. So from our slice, we can actually have two forms or two examples of plants that are here. You can see a standard plant with its roots there, and it is dipped into the soil. It has all the necessary nutrients from the soil and it helps in a normal growth, and there's no special adaptation for that plant. But when you move to the venomous flytrap, you see, because the plant is a wetland or it's a bog, so what it does that it is growing in a nutrient poor environment. So what it does is that it supplements its diet with insects, and that is the specialized traps for nitrogen, so that it can survive actually. Okay, so now let's look at how things are done. So you can see a picture of the Venus flytrap on my right and some numbered steps or procedure on my left. So it is just basically about how this plant actually gets to trap its prey or insect for survival. So we said inside each trap lobe are tiny trigger hairs called the trichosomes, and that's what happens when an insect brushes against them twice within about 20 seconds. The trap snaps shut in under a tenth of seconds. So what I just read is what has been explained in the numbered form. So the insect lands on the leaves and it touches the first trigger hair. Nothing happens. The signal bells when a second touch confirms that it is a live prey. The trap snaps, the loops clamp shut in milliseconds, and the seal tightens. That interlocking its teeth prevent the prey from escaping. So now, after the prey has been captured, what happens next? So how does digestion actually work? So once a prey is secured, the venomous flytrap releases digestive enzymes, primarily protease, into the seal trap, and these enzymes break down the insect protein into amino acid, which the plant absorbs through specialized glands. So we have protease breaking down the protein into amino acid down here, and it's now doing it now produces the phosphate, which releases phosphorus from the prey. It does not release the nucleosis, which digests the DNA and the RNA of the insect for nitrogen. So that is exactly what you see. That is how we now convert the food into food, like the cellular respiration. So there's glycolysis, there's the Krebs cycle, and there is the oxidative phosphorylation. So what it does that after it has gotten the nutrient, it now converts this glucose into adenosine triphosphate, which is the currency of every cell for it to thrive, and it uses this energy to power its growth, its reproduction, its track movement, and also to repair worn out tissues. And we know that with that, and I'm going to bear with me that with that efficient cellular respiration, none of these venomous flytrap remarkable adaptation will be possible. So this is just a summary of what I just said. So how it traps or its carnivorous activity. So first, it uses its nectar-baited smelling substance on its leaves to lure the insects for them to come. And when this insect comes and they have a double or twice trigger within 20 seconds, they are now trapped, and that is what we talked about initially. And when they are trapped, they now interlock themselves, so there's a rapid closure, trigger pressure change in the leaf cells, and causes that it interlocks the teeth, and that prevents it from escaping. It now seals it, and now we see the protease is being produced. It breaks down the protein chains into amino acid. The phosphate breaks down the nucleic acids into phosphorus, and you have the chitinase breaking down the exoskeleton shelf of the insect. And now you have enzymes also coming into play and to help in digestion, and that is the digestive glands releases a stomach cocktail of enzymes acid, which is of a pH of 2 to 3 over several days to deal with it. So after that is happened, the nutrients are now absorbed and the trap is reopening for other insects to settle. And that's what happens in the cell. What's another special adaptation of the cell? So it hangs trap loops. It helps it to conserve water, and also it helps to prevent the prey from running. And see, what we said from the beginning is that unless there's a twice triggering of the hairs, that is the trichomes, before it can react and trap. So that means it also helps us to prevent it from trapping debris or dead organisms into it. So what it does is that it helps it to trap live organisms. And from what we just said, despite being carnivorous, it also uses chlorophyll to survive, but it just uses the carnivorous one to be a supplement to help the chlorophyll activities. So everything is now converted, and this animal grows. And you can see that whatever I said here has now been drawn into a life cycle there. And so we have the photosynthesis happening, we have the carnivorous activity happening, we have the digestion taking place, and you have the cellular respiration that is converting the glucose into ATP, and now have growth and reproduction of this plant, and this happens. So it's exactly what happens in plants that today we spoke about, known as the Venus flytrap. So I thank you all for your time, and also for coming, and also for listening. And I know today we've learned something, and that is going to help us to know the essence and how this plant actually survives. So in all, this is the summary of whatever we just did. So photosynthesis is first, and so when the plant is in a favorable environment or nutrient-full soils, they undergo the photosynthesis. But if they find a not favorable environment, is when they now trap instead to fill in the gap. Enzymes do their way to convert them into energy, and now ATP is being produced, and that helps the plant to does whatever it does to undergo its life activities. So thank you, and I hope you have learned something today.